Hi everyone, today is May 12th, 2020. We still got at least 2 weeks before a number of businesses here in Washington State will reopen. At least 2 weeks. I'm going to bet it's going to be more. But it made me think about in the past when I lamented other things that at least I had the privilege of doing and I instead of going out to enjoy them. I have a big problem with wintertime depression. Every January to early March, I get really out of it and become very pessimistic about various things, and it's a very tough time for me. I feel like I dodge a bullet every time I make it to early March and stay in one piece. And obviously this year we compounding it, we had the cloud of COVID hanging over our heads. We weren't really locked down during the time, but on the news we were worried about what was happening in China, and actually that might have distracted me from my wintertime depression. We weren't locked down or anything, so even though we should have been, according to some people, I don't think so. I think we should have paid more attention to our immune systems. But that's a hard sell to America. But that's another story for another time. But at least most winters we have the freedom of actually going out to enjoy them. The same might not be said about 2021, right? We have to see. And at least I had the privilege of actually traveling somewhere else, right? Depending on if I can get what I'm doing at the time, I can get out of what I'm doing, right? Okay, so wintertime depression. I've had times where I lamented about losing at, I compete at a computer game conference. I sometimes compete at board game tournaments. I love to play backgammon and to a lesser extent shogi. And sometimes I don't do as well as I hope to, and I get very upset over though. Sometimes at the Computer Olympiad, sometimes some of the games involve a little bit of luck, right? There's the computer AI for Monopoly. There's I hope to do backgammon at some point, and also one of the games that one of my colleagues invented, Einstein Werfeld Not. It involves rolling a six-sided die and moving one of your pieces. And I lose at that just because, in part because I'm not very lucky with the dice. I think I showed you guys some lucky dice that I had bought online one time, made of 99.9% silver, and I tend to do a little better with it, but I still sometimes lose, right? And one year I got really upset. The contest was held in Amsterdam, and it was the best of 10 between myself and 5 or 6 other opponents, and got very upset during the middle of the tournament, and I stormed out without completing that tournament, and I took a bus to Gdansk, Poland, and my opponents were very upset that I didn't finish the games. I really shouldn't have done that. At least we didn't have COVID, and we had the privilege of sitting there to compete. And I really didn't put that into perspective. Now that we've gone through COVID, I think I could have handled. Next time I run into the same situation, I think I can handle it a whole lot better. That's why I'm recording this. I don't want to soon forget COVID once it's all said and done. You know, in 2003 we had SARS. We had H1N1 in 2009. I don't think we locked down nearly as much. People were more cautious and definitely thought about washing their hands and all that. But where else has there been a time where things were not where they should have been? Well, obviously, after 9/11, people were a little bit more cautious about going out. We obviously had the 2008 financial crisis, but every time one of those things ended, I soon forget all the things that I couldn't do during those times. I don't want to do that this time because it's put a lot of things in better light now that I think back at it. Okay, last year I had a disappointing situation at my job. See, I look a lot younger for my age. I teach as an adjunct professor at a university. It's a relatively small university. I sometimes, to give you an idea of how young I look for my age, sometimes I gotta be careful that I don't get in trouble because sometimes one of the students has a crush on me or something like that. And she might be 19, 20, 21 years old. And I like when that happens, even though I can't allow anything to happen between myself and the student. It kind of confirms that I'm staying healthy. The big problem is when people who are actually my age treat me like a kid. Um, I need to make sure that on the other side of the equation that doesn't happen too. And sometimes uh, so I had a manager who was just a few years older than me, on paper that is. By treatment and by appearance, we're decades apart. That's the big problem, right? And sometimes they get walked on all over. So last year I had uh, a gig that I got last minute, right? He says, I was teaching 2 courses, and he goes, oh, why don't you teach this third one as well? And I had taught it before, and I just didn't think much of it, and I went into the class. It was a Sunday when he called me, and I started teaching it on a Monday. And then by that Friday, he asked me to sign this contract formally for the course that I had started teaching. It wasn't the terms that I thought it would have been. And obviously, I couldn't just quit right then and there. I had 3 students in that class, and I couldn't just leave them hanging there. So I signed it, and but I signed it in duress. Let's put it that way. And I ended up finishing teaching that course without a problem, but I was disappointed. And I don't think it would have happened if he treated me like the 32-year-old I was, and not the 17-year-old that I looked like, right? What was really disappointing is that it showed up again, because that affected how much I got in unemployment. So it was another salt on the wound when I was applying for unemployment last month. Put it that way. And but at least I had the privilege of teaching that course when it was happening, right? I'd much rather be teaching, even if somebody's walking all over me, than to be collecting unemployment. Long story short. Yes, I should have stood up for myself. Yes, I had the privilege of doing it at the time as well. So maybe I shouldn't be so angry about things when they're happening. When at least I have the privilege of dealing with it. Um, Okay, and then I thought about times when I've broken up from relationships, and I got very angry about it as well. Sometimes I channel that anger in positive ways, though. 4 years ago, I had broken up with a girl because she accused me of cheating, and I got so upset that I drove out of. She lived with her parents. I drove out of her parents' home, and I got totally lost. I mean, I was only supposed to drive 5 miles away to where I lived, and instead I ended up 100 miles away in Ellensburg, Washington, and this was at the end of March, and very beautiful skies over there. Very few clouds, very little pollution. I got to see the Milky Way, and it was kind of a nice, like a sequel to that relationship, if you will. When I was working on my PhD, another girl who had taken advantage of me, and after we broke up, I couldn't find another girl to take on a number of dates that I wanted to go to. I discovered I could go on all those dates by myself without the girl. What's really funny was that around the same time, I used to have a big fear of flying. And I remember telling straight up to my family, I'll never want to fly again anyway, because there's no reason to. I mean, everything I want to do, I could do here in the United States, and technology was rapidly improving at the time. We don't have to go to conferences anymore. Everything we could do online, right? And there's no reason to fly. My mom was really upset at that remark, because at the time 3 of my grandparents were alive, and they all lived in Taiwan. And my mom said that it was my obligation to go, number one, to go attend their funerals one day, and number two, possibly go visit them when they are terminally ill, right? And I didn't want to think of, first of all, I didn't want to think about losing my grandparents, and second, I didn't want to think about flying. And there was another reason it took me so long to get over my fear of flying. Because I didn't have a girl to travel with. What's the point? And I look at all my friends, especially my friends on Facebook. They're traveling with their wives, with their girlfriends, and that doesn't apply to me. Why the fuck would I need to fly? I don't have a girl to fly with. I don't have a girl to visit. There's just no point. And then in 2011, So 10 years after 9/11, because 9/11 was what started my fear of flying. 10 years after that, my advisor was looking at this conference she wanted me to attend, and it was in San Francisco, and she was like, what do you think? It's going to cost this much to fly there. And when she said fly, I said, are you kidding me? I'm driving there. That's what I said to her. And she said, are you kidding me? And I said, no. I love road trips anyway. I don't think I'll ever be flying again. And I told her the same thing I told my family 10 years earlier. I'm never flying again. And my advisor was like, well, what are you going to do about all these conferences? There's ones in Europe. Are you going to drive to Europe as well? I said, if I could, I probably would, right? At the time, there was talk about building a bridge over the Bering Strait and all that, and I didn't think much about that. If I had to drive through the continental U.S. and then over the Bering Strait and then through Siberia, might be a problem at the time. At the time, the EU only consisted of up to Germany, and I don't know what kind of visa you would need to drive through the Central Europe, especially Ukraine or Belarus or even Poland at the time, right? But if I could, if we had the bridge and if we had all the agreements to go through all those countries, I would have. And finally, my advisor convinced me to go to the conference, and I went, and I had the best time of my life. And I had a good experience flying that first time. And I discovered you could enjoy life without a partner. That was a revolutionary discovery for me. I was 23 years old. I never realized that was possible. Everything I had ever heard about it on social media or on the TV or... See, when people go out by themselves, it's not a very high-profile event. That's why it doesn't feel like anybody's doing it. It wasn't until I actually started going out more myself that I realized other people did it as well. Okay. So at least I had the privilege of playing with that stuff. You know, COVID really showed me that we shouldn't take any of that for granted anymore after we go back to normal, and if we ever go back to normal. Even if we somewhat went toward normal, I don't think I want to take those extra things we can do for granted anymore. That's why I'm recording this, to not only show other people, but to remind myself in 2025, when I'm out there lamenting about losing at the Computer Olympiad, when I'm upset about getting over a fear, right? You know, it took me 10 years to get over my fear of flying. You know, one thing that's being discussed is that eventually we're going to have suborbital flights, and you can go to Europe in 30 minutes. I'm not sure if that will make me nervous again, but when I start to get over that fear, I got to remember, at least I have the privilege of doing that. You know, I got to think to myself, back in 2020 when we were locked in, even if I had all the money in the world, I couldn't take a suborbital flight. Well, next time I'm at I have a disagreement at my workplace, next time I break up with somebody, next time I'm frustrated when I go on vacation, next time what else did I talk about here? Next time I get depressed during the winter time, you know, I get serious wintertime depression. Next time I have a heat stroke in the summertime, right? Next time the weather's just really boring, right? Next time my computer crashes, right? Next time my game ideas don't go the way I want them to. At least I have the privilege of doing it! Thanks for watching.